Hello and welcome to At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Oftentimes people hear the word leader and they think only of political leaders, but leaders come in many forms, and that's worth exploring. I'm Jim Hoyer, born and raised in West Virginia, a husband, a father, a new grandfather, and a retired military leader, serving for over 40 years in public leadership for our state and nation. Now, the most important mission I have going forward is to educate, motivate, and empower our next generation of leaders. At the leadership table with me today is Dr. Larry Rhodes. And Larry is a pediatric cardiologist. He's an associate professor in the WVU School of Medicine. And Larry also is the executive director for rural programs at the WVU Institute for Community and Rural Health. In his various roles, Larry serves West Virginians from the bedside and beyond, and I've had the opportunity to work with Larry, sometimes in disaster response in West Virginia, but I will tell you that Larry is one of the most ardent and passionate supporters of West Virginia's rural communities and our rural population and their health. And Larry, it's a pleasure to have you joining us at the leadership table today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the kind words. Thanks.
So, Larry, I'm going to start out by asking you the same first question we ask all of our guests. Share with us a standout moment when you learned something really important about leadership.
Well, I think it was probably in high school, and I went to a school I went to Nitro High School in Kanawha County, but it was a mixed population of basically people from where I was out on Tyler Mountain, and we were kind of the poor folk, and then there were people in Nitro, blue-collar people that did well, and then there was a smattering of people that did better than well. And there were times when there would be, in a school of, I think, maybe 900 or 1,000, there would be these little factions. And you were raised in the Kanawha Valley as well, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I just remember a gym teacher, and who actually was a football coach as well, and he basically he called an assembly, and he was, like I said, a football coach, and he was not someone that you would think of as a speaker. He was a hollerer, because he was used to hollering at football players, but he held an assembly, and he talked about things much deeper than what we had going on at the school. And he basically shepherded the students and the faculty, because there's some of the faculty had just thrown their hands up. We can't do anything with this. Well, they were wrong, but and I still remember him to this day, because he came out of the woodwork basically, and he healed some things at our school. So that was probably the first person that I really would say, other than, school principals and vice principals and things are leaders, but this person, was a leader that didn't have the title that some of the other people did.
So a great example of somebody who stepped up at a time when that was needed to have leadership and took on that role broader than beyond what they would normally be doing.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes.
So Larry, you mentioned you grew up on Tyler Mountain and outside of Nitro in Kanawha County. You've got a really interesting background. You went from Tyler Mountain to some pretty significant learning opportunities in medicine, and then made it your life's mission to come back and serve West Virginia. Can you give our listeners a little bit of your journey, how you went from Nitro out of the state and then back to serve West Virginia?
I'd be happy to. So I graduated from Nitro High School, and one of the most significant things in my life, I was standing in line for commencement. We had commencement back at the old Lately Field back, in the days before there was telephones. But I was standing in line at commencement, and the guidance counselor came up to me and kind of pulled on my robe. She said, "Larry, I need to tell you something." She says, "I really believe that you shouldn't waste your family's money going to college." I'm looking at your face. I can see eyeballs over there that big. And I'll tell this story because it was probably one of the most important things anybody ever said it to me in my life. And so I went to Alderson Broaddus College, and I majored in the physician's assistant program. It just started in 1968, and I went to school there in '76. I finished, I switched over to a chemistry major, and I came up here to medical school and had a wonderful time. And I'll talk about some other leaders here in a few minutes about my experience there. I did my residency here, and then I went to Harvard to do pediatric cardiology. And I was there for a total of 4 years. It was a 3-year fellowship. And as it turns out, I stayed on faculty for a year. And when I was in Boston, it was worse than the Beverly Hillbillies. I mean, I can tell you that we took a U-Haul truck. I did a cruel thing to my wife. I took her to Boston with 2 kids under 2 years of age, and I went to work for 72 hours at a time, because back then, as a house officer back then, there was no such thing as hours. You worked as long. And so she did a great job, and so I was there, and like I said, I stayed on the faculty for a year, and then I came back here I was here for 5 years, and then I ended up going to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and that's part of the University of Pennsylvania Medical School, and I was there for 10 years, and I was on the faculty there the entire time, and so I've been a very lucky person, starting with a guidance counselor that was strong enough to kick me in the rear end, and I just got lucky, in terms of where I got to do my education. And the other part I was lucky with, I had a wife. We've been married over 45 years, and I've done silly stuff like that all the time, I mean, and you can imagine, we're in a 2-bedroom, 2-family apartment that, honest to goodness, our kids could stick their hand out the window in their bedroom and touch the hand of the kid in the next door house. That's how close these houses were. So you can imagine having 2 kids under 2, doing the stuff they do, and crying was part of it. So, but anyway, I've just been very, very fortunate.
Well, and I think 2 things to pull on a little bit there. One is the significance of having a spouse and partner who can help be part of the team, and you guys have done this together. I think safe to say, yes. Being able to serve West Virginia in the role that you have to have that strong partner to be able to do that. Is that
absolutely? Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't do it by myself.
Yeah. And I think the other thing for our listeners to understand is, when you did your residency and your fellowship at Harvard, that gave you the opportunity to potentially go wherever you wanted to go. That was a pretty significant opportunity. And then our listeners who may not know, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is a very exceptional children's hospital as far as our country goes medically. you've had two great opportunities there, but something called you back. What was it that drove you to come back to serve the people of West Virginia?
Just because I'm a West Virginian, and I feel guilty. I don't feel as guilty about Boston as I did Philadelphia because I got back here in 4 years. But I feel like I owe a penance, because I was away for 10 years in Philadelphia. And the thing the only reason I was, well, not the only, the biggest reason I was there for 10 years is I promised my kids that we wouldn't move again until they graduated from high school, because I was dragging two kids, and so we ended up staying. We lived in New Jersey, just across the river from Philadelphia, but that's that. And I'm not sad that I did it, but I sometimes wish I'd just stayed where I was, not here.
So in your role as a pediatric surgeon and cardiologist, you work with people from all different age spectrums. Tell us a little bit about what leadership lessons and communications lessons you've learned to be able to build trust with not just your patient, the child, but also the parents who are dealing with those challenges that their children are facing.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that I learned to listen, and I think that one of the most important things in being a physician of any kind is to listen, and I engage the patients from probably 15 months up clear through the time I see them. I mean, they have something to say, and they want to say it, and I just feel like that's the relationship that I have with my patients, and I would try to remember different things about the patients. I mean, if they got a bicycle for Christmas, and I'd see them in March, and I'd say, "Well, did you get to ride in snow?" "No, I wrecked it 2 weeks after I got it, and Dad won't put a tire on it." I mean, just that kind of stuff. But I think that's a big part of it, and it's what kept me happy, and it's the same way with talking to the parents, and I just think that it's I really believe the worst thing you can do in medicine or in any other profession is to do something that you don't love. I mean, it's I know people that started in peds and they couldn't do it, and I tell people, and once again, you guys can edit any of this stuff. There's nothing that comes out of a baby that ain't been in this beard. I mean, I've had them pee in my face, I've had them vomit in my face. I mean, it's just, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, it's just the way it is. So go ahead.
So you and I come from a little bit different generation, and things are changing and moving along. As the world evolves, what leadership qualities do you believe are most important for physicians to navigate the environment that going forward?
Well, I think maybe one of the things is a serenity prayer. Think about it. What can we change? And we might as well just accept it. I mean, medicine's, we are different a little bit. When I started medical school in 1980, the giants were still in that building up there. The people that came from Minnesota in 1962 when they opened the medical school. So I've had a blessed life in terms that I got to walk in the shadow of these giants, and I appreciate it. And I don't know what happened when they interviewed people in 1979. They must didn't have 15 applicants for 80 spots, because if they'd had 80 people, I never got in medical school. But it's just but I think you have to, And another thing I like to say is you stand in awe. And I think if you're a healthcare provider and if you don't feel this sensation of awe with the stuff you see, and I know I talk funny. I'm not saying ALL. I'm saying AWL. But because it's just like, think of the opportunity we have to do that. And I'm not throwing stones at anybody else, and I'm glad other people have jobs that they're happy with and that I don't have to do.
Well, I think there's a lot of people across our state, particularly in the rural parts of our state, that are would disagree and would say that in 1980, when they picked Larry Rhodes to be a part of that medical school class, it was a pretty good decision for the people of West Virginia. So
that's kind.
Yeah. So in West Virginia and across the nation, there are a lot of ongoing challenges to recruit healthcare providers to work in rural areas. We're facing that in West Virginia. You do a lot of mentoring for young professionals in our medical school here at West Virginia University. Tell us a little bit about what you're talking to them about as to the significance of why they should help serve that rural population in West Virginia.
Well, one of the things I start with is the joys of doing it. And you know, we all, whether we want to admit it or not, we want to feel needed. And I feel very much that way when I'm in the middle of Wyoming County. You know, I think there's those rewards, and I think the people are the rewards. I mean, they're good people, you know, and then maybe they're not the most compliant sometimes, and I have a little bit of a hammer that a lot of doctors don't have, because being a pediatrician, we 85% of the time you can guilt the parents into taking care of the kids. You can make sure, you know, the parents may not take their blood pressure medicine more than once every 2 or 3 weeks, but if you put a kid on an antibiotic, that kid's going to get it every day. And I think that that's important. And I think that it's easy to go to a rural place and within 3 months be part of the community. And I don't know if you've heard, I do this talk about mason jars, and I talk about the pint jars and the quart jars, and then I talk about apple butter, and I talk about jelly, and I talk about honey, and I tell people, I said, you know what, we have mason jars because my wife cans too, but I'll bet I've got 35 mason jars of different denominations, even those little half pint jars. Now sometimes they don't get home with me. If somebody in Glenville gave me a little half pint of jelly, chances are before I got back out to the interstate, I would have it going. And my wife said, what happened to that? And I said, I don't know. There must have been bugs in the truck or something. But it's just those types of things that make it a joy. And it's and like I said, it just having, you know, a sense that they need you. I mean, you and I walk through this building up here. We could stop walking through there tomorrow, and it'd probably be this time next year where I know before they'd miss me. So, you know,
I'm not sure that's the case.
Well,
Larry,
but I'm just saying it's, you know, but I can tell you if something's going on and I don't make it to Pineville for a clinic, somebody from that clinic will call and see what's going on. So, I mean, it's just that. And once again, Dr. Gee, when Dr. Gee was here, when we called his phone and before it answered, simple gifts, right? That's what played. And that's what this is. Mm-hmm. It's simple gifts. And it's just, you know, if not everybody wants to do that. But anyway, I've had a very nice mixture. You know, I get to do rural clinics, and as it turns out, I was in the first 3 people the group I was with in Boston. We did the first ablation in a child with ectopic atrial tachycardia. So just once again, just blind dumb luck. I was in the right place at the right time, and that's what's carried me. And I do think God takes care of simpletons, and he's done that for me. So.
And you talked about too being in that class in 1980. Actually, I think West Virginians just assume that the medical school program at WVU's just been around forever, but that's not the case. Your 1980 class was still part of a relatively young medical school program that started back in the 60s to serve West Virginia's population, and now has grown into serving across the entire state like it was envisioned.
Right. No, and that's because there's been a ton of good people that come through there, and
we both have the opportunity to work in a building that one time was the hospital.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So Larry, for your kids, for our kids and grandkids, what's your hope for West Virginia going forward?
Well, there's just a bunch of different angles at this. I think we have a significant foster kid issue. I mean, we have trouble finding enough foster parents, so I think that's a big deal. I think the substance abuse, and you know what? It's one of those things that it just depends on which way the wind's blowing as to how much attention it gets. But I think I think that I don't think it's up and down as much as it's just here. It's not going down, and I think that that's a big issue. And I want kids, young people, to feel. I want them to dream about what they want to be, and what I don't know if you ever were here. Dr. Facati was a peds neurologist that was here for a long time. He's retired now. He taught us that anytime you go in and see a child, you ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And he said it doesn't matter. What if they answer you applaud it. He said if they want to be a fireman, if they want to ride on the back of the garbage truck and throw stuff up in it. He said, but when you walk out of the room sad and worried is when they don't answer you. And I still do that. Well, I don't see patients now, but up until the last day I saw patients, I'd ask them what they wanted to be. And it didn't matter what it was. If they answered me, I applauded it. And I said, listen, I wish I could do that. And I, to be totally frank, a long time in my life, I wanted to ride on the back of a garbage truck. I thought that was so neat to be able to jump off a truck, pick up something, throw it in and stuff. But anyway, I think that's an issue, is that we've taken the dreams, and so that's the biggest thing. And I'd love to see a time when grandparents and great-grandparents are not raising kids. And I had two families before I could stop seeing patients where great-grandparents were raising the kids. And you think about that just for a couple of minutes, that means there was something wrong with the grandparents. And in a couple of cases that I know of, one was incarceration and the other one they couldn't stay clean. Mm-hmm. And these are the grandparents.
Right.
And I saw a patient in Summersville about 3 years ago, and this 85-year-old lady was with a kid, and everything was going fine, and we were talking a little bit. And she just has tears running down her face. And I said, what's wrong? She said, I don't think I'm going to live long enough to raise him. and I don't know what happened, but the kid was only 5, and she was insightful. So,
well, on this podcast, we try to highlight leaders from a broad spectrum, and particularly people who step up and lead at important times and lead across communities, because communities are the key to our nation's success. And Dr. Larry Rhodes, I'll tell you that you're one of my heroes, because you step up and you lead by example every day, helping people in communities who don't have all the opportunities that others have. You're an example of somebody who grew up in a rural part of West Virginia and went to the pinnacle of medical training and practice and education, but you came back here to make a difference in West Virginia. So I thank you for what you do and for joining us at the leadership table today.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. This has been At the Leadership Table with retired Major General Jim Hoyer. Did you know you can now find me on social media at RMG Hoyer? That's HOYER, or email me at rmgjameshoyer@gmail.com.